What if Anakin was born in the Jedi Temple? In The Phantom Menace, Anakin is discovered by Qui-Gon, and after a midichlorian test, the Jedi Master believes he is the Chosen One. However, the Council disagrees and believes that because he is 9 years old, he cannot be trained. But what if this wasn't the case? And what if Anakin was born in the Jedi Temple and therefore trained from the very beginning? Let's start today's story in the Council Chambers. Yoda has called an emergency meeting because he felt a vergence in the Force whilst meditating, and now he asks his fellow masters for guidance. They each place a hand on his shoulder as they fall into a deep meditation, transporting them to Tatooine inside a small home of a pregnant woman. Yoda immediately understands what the Force is telling him. He can smell the power of the woman's unborn child. He must go to Tatooine now. Yoda, Windu, and Plo Koon travel to Tatooine, where they make contact with Shmi and bring her back to Coruscant. Shmi remains in the medical center of the Jedi Temple under care until she gives birth. This is like nothing she has ever seen before. Going from a slave on Tatooine to the heights of the Jedi Temple is an immense change. But a few days later, she gives birth to Anakin, and a midichlorian test is instantly conducted, discovering that he is more midichlorians than even Yoda. Shmi would be set up with an apartment and job on Coruscant, and her days as a slave would be over. From birth, it was clear that Anakin was different. Rumors of the Chosen One being born echoed throughout the halls. Everyone wanted a glimpse at him. He was nurtured in the temple from the moment he could walk. When he was 2, he joined the younglings classes, and he wasn't treated differently to any Jedi at this stage, but after a short amount of time, he started to stand out. What took most younglings years of hard work to master, Anakin would complete in only a couple of weeks. The masters in his class knew that he was an anomaly, and that this boy was special. By the time he was 8, he was as powerful as most younglings aged 13. And the council decided that it's time that he began his Padawanship. This became the most contentious point in the Jedi. There were many Jedi that wanted the honor of training the Chosen One, but after much debate, Yoda decided that the task wouldn't be given to one particular Jedi. Anakin was different, special, and he would be treated accordingly. Therefore, the entire council would train him together, each teaching him things special to that master. Anakin's schedule was relentless. He had no time for fun and games. His time was spent training, and each master would take this very seriously. Yoda took the boy under his wing first. The Grand Master would focus on the Force itself, instilling his wisdom into the young boy. But Yoda did not lecture him. Instead, he guided Anakin to feel, to listen. They sat in silence for hours as Yoda encouraged him to extend his lenses beyond the garden, beyond the temple, until Anakin could feel the tremble of ships landing miles away, the laughter of children on distant balconies, and the quiet sadness of passing strangers. This took many months of relentless training, but in Anakin's boyish mind, he found these lessons very boring, and he wondered when he would get to wield a lightsaber or use Jedi mind tricks on someone for information. But slowly, he began to fall in love with the subtleties of the Force. Anakin learned patience in those gardens, control, and most importantly, humility. But as soon as one lesson ended, another began. Mace Windu took over after Yoda, and his approach was the literal opposite of Yoda's. It was intense. Mace pushed him to confront his fears, his attachments, and anger. Windu was the master of controlling emotions, and this was why he received a purple lightsaber, the combination of light and dark. This was the training Anakin needed. Windu saw in him not just power, but the dangerous fire of passion. Through these lessons, Anakin slowly learnt how to use his hatred without breaking, without succumbing to evil. When Anakin was 12 years old, he traveled to Ilum to get his Kyber crystal. When he was in the cave, 2 crystals chose him. First, a purple blade, symbolizing his light and dark, and the other saber was green. This meant that Anakin could now begin his lightsaber training. The temple's battle master, Drellic, took charge of Anakin's saber training. Their duels shook the training halls. At first, Drellic treated him like any other Padawan, but within weeks, he realized that the boy's instincts were nearly flawless, so he changed tactics. He began training Anakin against multiple opponents, sometimes blindfolded and sometimes in gravity fields that shifted mid-duel. Training droids were brought in for life simulations. Even young Jedi Knights aged around 25 came to test him. Sin's teaching style is the stereotypical lessons that you see in fighting movies, where he fights and gives the lesson at the same time. As they sparred, Drellic would always say, "A lightsaber is an extension of your will. but without clarity of will, it will become chaos. Anakin grew fast and his powers were exemplary, and though the other younglings respected him, many feared him too. His style was aggressive, fluid, and unpredictable, but no one could deny that he was the most promising young Jedi at only age 14. Hey guys, make sure to check out our saber shop, Fantasy Sabers, for the best NeoPixel sabers on the market. We have a bunch of perfect replicas and other insane Padawan sabers for sale. Check them out on our website, first link in the description below, and grab your own one today. One evening, Plo Koon summoned him to the high tower of the Jedi Temple. The Keldor Master was known for one thing in particular, a rare ability that only a few can possess. This was called Electrical Judgment, which in essence is just the Jedi's version of Sith Lightning. It's yellow instead of blue, and it isn't as powerful as Sith Lightning, but against almost any opponent, it's extremely invaluable. The Council didn't know if Anakin possessed this ability, but there was only one way to find out. Anakin developed on maintaining a tether to the light. For him, it was his mother, and then with that starting point in the light, he could venture into the dark and let the Force take over. At first, Anakin struggled, but after lots of training, the yellow lightning eventually erupted from his fingertips. Plo helped the Chosen One control it, and after having lessons for most of his teenage years, Anakin became the second Jedi in hundreds of years to possess this rare ability. Flight came next. Saesee Tiin brought Anakin to the hangar every third morning. They didn't begin in cockpits. First, Saesee made him memorize every part of a starfighter, blindfolded. Then, they flew simulators with deliberate malfunctions programmed, such as flickering HUDs, missing engines, and asteroid storms. And finally, real missions. Anakin was sent on escort runs to the Outer Rim, patrolling vulnerable convoys with other Jedi. Saesee often trailed him in a second ship, watching. This part of Anakin's training came very easy to him. And finally, Kit Fisto taught him how to swim. Other masters came and went. Shakti taught him how to speak with beasts. Luminara and Dooley instructed him in healing and anatomy, warning him that a Jedi must know how to protect life, not just take it. Obi-Wan even made occasional appearances, instructing him how to defend with a lightsaber. Not every lesson was easy. Anakin faced failure in a mission to Felucia. His overconfidence led a team of Padawans into a nest of jungle beasts. While no lives were lost, the Council was displeased. He spent weeks grounded, forced to study the Jedi Code word for word with Jocasta Nu, who had little patience for his restlessness. But even in these quieter moments, he learned. After a decade of learning, Anakin had finally passed the trials and he became a Jedi Knight. Now 19 years old, Anakin had become something the Jedi had never seen before. He was the most powerful Jedi in the Order. He was skilled with a lightsaber, brilliant in battle, capable of emotions, yet not consumed by them. He was well and truly the Chosen One. As for Palpatine, he knew he couldn't turn Anakin to the dark side anymore since he was protected by the Council. So instead, he changed his tactics. He ordered several assassination attempts on the Chosen One throughout his training. Several bounty hunters tried, but also several failed. Anakin was essentially untouchable, and Palpatine knew this would become an issue. The Clone Wars would begin soon after Anakin's training concluded. Just like the original timeline, Anakin would become the poster boy for the Jedi Order, leading several campaigns in the Clone Wars. He was powerful, charismatic, and the people of the Republic loved him. He took on Ahsoka as an apprentice, and everything was great. One part of the story that does differ to the original timeline is that Anakin and Padme never marry. Since Anakin was raised by the Jedi Council, he would never come in contact with her and thus never falls in love. And so, Anakin becomes one of the war's most legendary generals. He used all of his impressive talents that he learned from the Council members to help the people of the galaxy. The war raged on for 3 years, and throughout this time, Palpatine continued as many assassination attempts as possible on the Chosen One. However, as usual, none of them succeeded. The issue that Palpatine had was that he was ready to execute Order 66, but he knew that Anakin would be a problem. Just how he orchestrated Kashyyyk to get Yoda off Coruscant, he would do the same for Anakin. Palpatine has the Separatists invade Umbara and retake control of the planet, placing its citizens under cruel treatment so that the Republic would be forced to act. Palpatine knew that Anakin would volunteer for this mission. Since the last mission on Umbara that Anakin missed, mayhem ensued with Jedi Master Krell. Anakin would have some vengeance to come on this mission, and so Anakin and the 501st are deployed to the Umbara system. Secretly, Palpatine follows and has his trap set as Anakin marches with the 501st into a Colosseum-like cathedral where he believes the citizens are being held hostage. Palpatine has all the doors frozen shut, leaving only Anakin and the clones inside. Then, without hesitation, he executes Order 66, beginning chaos all around the galaxy. At the Jedi Temple, the Coruscant Guard entered with no mercy. Blaster fire lit up the halls of the Jedi Temple as the clones stormed through, cutting down masters and Padawans alike. The great statues smashed as younglings screamed, and the hum of lightsabers faded beneath the sound of blaster fire. Aayla Secura collapsed on Felucia. On Maigito, Ki-Adi-Mundi was betrayed and murdered. Plo Koon's Starfighter was exploded in the skies above Cato Nemoidia. All over the galaxy, Jedi lost their lives to the clones. At the temple, Jedi scattered to try and defend, but time was running out. Back on Umbara, Anakin looked at the clones in confusion as he saw their loyalty switch right in front of him. Rex tells Master Skywalker to raise his hands, that any movement will be regarded as an act of treason. Anakin didn't understand. He moved closer, at first interpreting this as a joke, but as he made a step, the combined might of the 501st Legion began firing at him. Anakin ignites his saber and deflects the bolts, shouting at them to stop, but they don't. They keep coming. Row after row of troopers pour into the room. He defends himself, but it's hard. These are men he fought beside for years, friends. He tries to disarm when he can, but the room turns into chaos, and some he has to kill. He moves fast, allowing the force to flow through him. He remembers back to his training, controlling his emotions through Windu's teachings, defending as Kenobi taught him, and fighting back with electrical judgment to clear a free path. In the viewing platform at the top of the cathedral, Palpatine watched with a smirk. He thinks he has finally done it. The Chosen One is gone. No one in the galaxy could hold off thousands of clone troopers firing simultaneously. The Sith Lord exits the building and walks back to his ship. Just to be sure, he orders a full Republic bombing run. Moments later, fire rains from the sky. The entire structure is hit. It collapses into itself. Fire, smoke, rubble, nothing remains. Palpatine is convinced that Anakin is dead, but in the final seconds before the blast hit, Anakin focused all of his energy into a force shield. It wrapped around him like a bubble, holding off the fire and debris. At the same time, the shield cut off his presence in the force. It was like he had vanished. Palpatine couldn't sense him, no one could. As Palpatine approached his ship, internally celebrating his victory, Anakin emerged from behind the smokes, limping and burned, but most definitely alive. Before Palpatine could react, Anakin launched forward, his lightsaber igniting mid-air. Their blades clashed hard, lighting up the ruined city with every blow. Palpatine snarled and unleashed Force lightning, but Anakin had trained just for this. He absorbed it into his saber and pushed through it. He used the electric judgment Plo Koon had taught him, firing back a controlled stream of golden lightning that threw Palpatine off balance. The Dark Lord recovered and tried to overwhelm him with speed, but Anakin anticipated every move, just as Saesee Tiin had taught him, reading each strike before it landed. The battle surged through Umbara's forest, as red battled blue. Palpatine summoned debris with the Force and hurled it like spears, but Anakin batted them away with precise saber spins from Syndrelic's lessons. Finally, Anakin landed a clean hit, slicing Palpatine's saber in two and knocking him flat. The Sith Lord tried to crawl away, but Anakin stepped over and reached down, placing his hand on his forehead. A strange glow pulsed from his palm, and Anakin allowed the Force to take over. He placed his hand on Palpatine's forehead as everything went white. Palpatine screamed and asked what kind of sorcery this was. Anakin announced that he has taken his Force powers away, so that he couldn't use it to hurt anyone else ever again. It was over. Anakin had won. On Coruscant, chaos filled the Jedi Temple as clones stormed the halls, but the remaining Jedi refused to fall. Led by Yoda, Mace Windu, and Obi-Wan, they mounted a fierce defense. Though they fought with skill and unity, the cost was immense. Nearly 90% of the Order was lost in the assault, but the Temple and Jedi would survive. Without Anakin fighting against the Temple, and Palpatine not on Coruscant to lead the assault, the Jedi won the Battle of Coruscant. When news of Palpatine's defeat at the hands of Anakin reached the front lines, the clones were deactivated and the war came to an end. With the Sith destroyed and the Republic beginning to heal, the Jedi turned their focus to rebuilding. Anakin was recognized as the chosen one who fulfilled the prophecy and saved the Jedi Order. As a result, Yoda named him the new Grand Master of the Jedi Order. Together with Yoda and other surviving masters, he helped reshape the Jedi into a more compassionate, open, and balanced force. Ahsoka returned to assist with training, and younglings began filling the halls once more. Shmi Skywalker lived to see her son bring peace to the galaxy. In time, the scars of war began to fade. The Jedi Order was restored, not as it once was, but as it was always meant to be. As for Palpatine, he was taken to a secret facility on a faraway world with maximum protection to spend the rest of his life in solitude. However, one day, a dark figure with red tattoos covering his face and body arrived, killing all the guards in one swift sweep. Palpatine began to laugh. This was only the beginning. If you enjoyed today's video, you must watch What If Anakin had visions of his defeat on Mustafar, and What If Anakin was never granted a seat on the council. Please check out Fantasy Sabers if you're looking for an affordable saber to add to your collection. We offer RGB, Xenopixel, and Profi in various sizes and designs. Also check out our membership platform to be able to watch our videos early. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.